Hey everybody, thanks for joining us again. We're back. It's been a while, and last time Adam was doing an episode solo, but we've got the old crew back together, and we've got some interesting movies for you.
That's right. We have some more reviews. We have two movies in which a vigilante kind of takes the justice into his own hands, and then we have one which has kind of nothing to do with that plot at all. So let's start with A Walk Among the Tombstones, starring Liam Neeson. This is a movie based on a novel, I believe. Yes?
Isn't The Maze Runner too?
Yes.
Yep. So pretty much, I'd say 1 out of 3 movies today are based on novels.
Well, and The Equalizer is based on a television series.
Okay, yeah.
So yes, a lot of based on stuff. But Walk Among the Tombstones is about a former New York policeman, detective, who kind of stumbles onto a sex trafficking, horrible crime duo-ness, craziness, and it's his sole responsibility to figure it out.
Yeah, maybe as opposed to the Taken films, we're used to seeing Liam Neeson really as a stand-up guy, he's got to deal with these horrible problems that are directly affecting him.
Yep.
Walk Among the Tombstones, he's a bit more conflicted. He's got some ghosts haunting his past, and these problems aren't really directly relating to him, so it's a bit of a, you have to kind of see his character kind of work to actually caring about what's going on around him.
All good noir stories, it's his curiosity that keeps dragging him further and further into this. And that's really how I would describe this movie, is neo-noir, I guess. A very modern age noir story. It hits on a lot of those tropes. It knows that it's a noir movie. And Liam Neeson himself kind of sells the whole thing as this character that you're just kind of gripped into watching the whole time as he slowly unravels this mystery. There's definitely not as much action going on as in the Taken movies and other projects that he's done recently. It's much more of a detective story where he's trying to solve this mystery, and he goes and he's finding clues, he's talking to people, and figuring it out. But there's definitely some action to be had.
Yeah, I mean, opening sequence, climax of the film. When there is action, it's very very frantic. You can feel like the tangible importance of every moment that passes by, because it presents all the characters as being vulnerable, and they could just as easily get killed, because this isn't Taken 3. It is a noir film,
right?
So.
And I would say this movie is not really for the light of heart.
No.
There's definitely some sensitive themes going on in the film. There's some dark moments. It might be kind of the darkest film that Liam Neeson has done since, I think, his wife passed. So there's definitely some kind of whoa. But overall, I really enjoyed it because I'm into all that kind of detective stuff. I like seeing this mystery slowly just come apart with more information, and this sole character where you're kind of in his footsteps, where you want to know just as much as he wants to know what's going on. And then when it finally all comes together, it's a pretty entertaining package.
Yeah, a darker film. It'll really stir your emotions towards contempt of the guys he's going after.
Yeah, the villains definitely sell their parts very well.
Yeah, it's a sobering movie because these are some realities of life that we have to deal with, and who better than this ex-detective alcoholic Liam Neeson to walk you through it among the tombstones. So.
Yeah. So, score-wise, what would you say?
While it was suspenseful, there were parts where I was just kind of waiting for it to advance to the next scene. I think it's a very capable movie, but I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
Okay. So now I more lean towards these kind of detective stories. I'm really into that, so I have a bit of a bias. So if you share that bias, I would say 7.75 for me.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I think it definitely succeeds in its function as that noir film as you described it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right, so then before we get to the other vigilante movie, I can talk about The Maze Runner, which I saw, but Sean did not. And this is a movie based on a series of young adult novels. I think this is just based on the first one, of which I have not read. And so there's kind of a slew of these young adult movies coming out. The Hunger Games, Divergent, The Giver, I guess. Would that sure.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them coming out, and I've seen quite a few of them. This might be my personal favorite yet of these young adult movies so far. The plot is basically, if you've seen any of the trailers, this kid, well, this young adult, wakes up in this kind of, he wakes up in an elevator that goes up into this pasture where there's a bunch of other guys, kids, and they are surrounded by a gigantic shifting maze, and really there's no way out. And that's pretty much it. And so it shares, basically the way I thought of it was a mix between Lord of the Flies and the movie Cube, where you want to know these answers just as much as the characters do, where they're trapped here, they don't know the way out, and, you know, that's kind of the mystery, you know? And so the movie itself kind of slowly pulls back the veil a little bit until the big reveal at the end.
All right, I got a question for you, Adam.
Sure.
You know, with these this genre of films that you listed some examples.
Yeah.
You know, some of them, like Divergent, I remember seeing some trailers for it, and it's like there wasn't a whole lot of star power jumping out at me. You have a film like The Hunger Games where it's just, you know, Jennifer Lawrence, you've got a strong supporting cast. And so I guess of the Maze Runner, were there any recognizable people, and just in general, do you think these movies benefit more from, you know, having that, or is it really just the plot that interests you?
I feel like for these types of movies based on these young adult books that I have not read, I personally feel like the unknown actors add to it. Where when I'm watching The Hunger Games, I'm like, oh, okay, Woody Harrelson's there. He's being Woody Harrelson. You know, I don't know the character that he's being. It's just, okay, there he is. Oh, and there's Philip Seymour Hoffman and stuff like that. I really liked that it was unknown actors in Maze Runner. It felt much more authentic.
Well, right. I mean, even not seeing this movie, I feel like for you really to get sucked into the premise and that feeling of helplessness and, you know, and having these things unknown to you, if you just see one iconic actor after another, I feel like that could unroot you from, you know, your seat and just kind of take you out of the experience.
Exactly, yeah. So, like I really like The Maze Runner. I like the plot. I like that kind of the unknowingness of this situation that this character is thrown into. And there's plenty of kind of exciting action moments, and there's a lot of kind of drama, but I didn't feel like it was just young adult drama. You know, I felt like, okay, these characters in this situation, this is probably how they would react with this all kind of bad stuff going on.
And that's really important.
It is very important, yeah.
Yep.
So I didn't feel like it really just catered to the young adult audience as much as Divergent did.
Right.
I really enjoyed it. Any other questions you had for me about this movie?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. Yeah.
So if you're curious about the plot, but you've never heard of the book or anything like that, I recommend going to see it. It's definitely well put together. It's a good movie.
Is this the kind of movie that's going to spawn some sequels, or did it feel...
Guaranteed there's going to be sequels, absolutely.
More Maze Running.
I think one's already been announced, yeah.
All right.
These young adult series just...
I figured there couldn't...
spawn that.
I figured unless it was just a complete bomb, this wasn't going to be the last Maze Runner.
I think it did pretty well, so...
Cool. All right. The Equalizer.
Yes.
You know, it's really funny to compare this with A Walk Among the Tombstones because there are similarities, but the kind of the gravity of the movies are completely different in that in Tombstones you kind of have like this hesitant, almost doubting Liam Neeson kind of, you know, following this sketchy trail. And in Tombstones, you kind of have the quintessential badass Denzel Washington.
Well, I feel like it says so much that one's based on like a novel, and one's based on like an 80s television show or something like that. Now, I don't think the link to the show is very strong. I think
Yeah.
they changed a lot of aspects. But yeah, Equalizer is definitely much more of a popcorn movie, I would say.
Yeah.
All right, so Equalizer stars a character named Robert McCall, played by Denzel Washington. And he, of course, also has a shadowy past, working for some sort of bureau.
Some sort of ex-special forces kind of guy.
And he kind of gets into a little bit of trouble with some Russian pimps, which leads to him launching a one-man warpath on the western seaboard, I guess.
Yeah, and who gets him in this mess is his sympathy for the situation of Chloe Grace Moritz's character, which I think she did a good job in this movie.
She wasn't in it a great deal.
Right. It's like if you're expecting to see her a lot, you won't, and she really serves a limited purpose in this movie. I actually
feel like that was probably the weakest part.
Right.
Was that relationship was just so tenuous and weak. Like, in Man on Fire, which is the movie I would most compare this to, you really felt that link between Creasy and Peta. You felt that he really cared about this girl. Like, she meant everything to him in that situation. Whereas here it's just like, okay, he doesn't like what's going on, and so he makes a bit of a rash decision, and then everything else just kind of spirals out of that. So I felt that was the weakest part, but I did really enjoy the movie overall.
Yeah, both of these are a bit longer. I think this one especially, Equalizer, is over 2 hours long, so it's a bit of a commitment. Would you say it's worth it for when those tense action scenes just kind of explode and
I would say
resolve? This
movie is worth it if you're a fan of Denzel Washington. That's exactly what I would say. If you like Denzel and the stuff that he does, you'll like this movie. It is classic Denzel all the way through. Where he gets that look in his eyes when he's talking to a guy who's dying on the floor, and he just spouts something that's kind of philosophical, and then he just lets the guy die, and it's just like, that's Denzel right there.
And sometimes he'll walk into a room, and just the way he enters into the door or closes the door, or something about his conduct, and you're just like, everyone else in that room is going to die within 10 minutes.
He's just got that unmatchable screen presence that will just make me keep going to see Denzel movies for a long time. Very entertaining stuff. It's definitely not as grim or as dark as A Walk Among the Tombstones, but there are some darker moments, and there's quite a bit of swearing.
Yeah.
It's Boston. It's not the Western Seaboard. I remember it's Boston because of all the swearing.
Yep. The Irish accent swearing.
Yeah. So, it's basically just Denzel taking on a whole lot of gang members. Yep. But there are some slower times.
Yep. So this movie comes as advertised. If you've seen a trailer for this movie, you know exactly what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. For some of you, that's great. If not, then maybe this isn't for you.
So what would you give this one?
We kind of talk about bias here.
Yeah, there's definitely bias.
I like Denzel. I think in terms of watchability, I thought this one was a bit easier to process than Tombstones.
Yep.
Although it may be a little bit more absurd than Tombstones.
Well, yeah, definitely. It's more a popcorn.
So I'm going to elevate it a bit more to a 7.5.
And I would give this an 8.
Okay.
Because I'm a big fan of Denzel and the way that he operates. It's not quite as good as The Man on Fire, but that's hard to beat.
Well, I mean, to be fair, if Sean Bean were in this role, for instance, I'd probably be a little bit higher too. So it comes down to preferences.
Subjective, that's what it's going to be. But like I said, if you like Denzel, check it out.
And it's a showcase for the power of just the one actor making or breaking the movie. So.
Yep, just like A Walk Among the Tombstones.
Yeah. So that wraps up our reviews, but there's a few upcoming films that we're interested in.
That's right. It is October now, which is traditionally the month of horror, and there are a few horror movies coming out. The first is Annabelle, which is the prequel, I want to say, to The Conjuring from James Wan. And this movie is focused on the titular doll that's haunted, but it's not haunted. There's some kind of weird relationship with it, but it's going to kill people somehow. So I know Sean is not the biggest fan of horror movies as much as I am. You know, I'm definitely gonna go see this. I liked The Conjuring, although I thought it was a bit formulaic, perhaps a bit blasé when it came to the end, and just.
And formula can hurt horror movies even more than revenge narratives like Denzel,
definitely.
because I mean that's the horror. You know, part of horror is just unknown and how it's going to unfold. So if
and a lot of horror movies nowadays, you know, I can see what's coming next every single time. So that's definitely a downfall. So I don't have great expectations for Annabelle. To be honest, I'm not sure if it even needed to be made. I'm not sure how many people are clamoring to see a movie about a haunted doll.
They've got your ticket though.
Yeah, well, of course they have my ticket. But so we'll see. The next horror movie coming out, which I'm not even sure how horror it is, really.
Yeah.
It's not traditional horror, if
you
it
know,
is.
I'd even probably consider it as like an action-adventure film with a dark tone to it.
Yeah. And that movie is Dracula Untold.
Yes. You know, if we compare this to I, Frankenstein, where, you know, you've got another mythical figure kind of getting a modern facelift, I looked at those previews. I didn't want anything to do with that movie.
And I did see that movie, and I didn't want anything to do with that movie.
Okay, but I'm excited about this. We have Luke Evans as Vlad Tepes, or Dracula as he'll become.
Yep.
But, you know, you can see with the setting, they're trying to root it to the historical Dracula, at least for the exposition, which I think is cool. Because
that is cool.
Eastern Europe during this time, you got the Ottoman Empire, this huge invasion, and you know, the historical guy was in a very tough position too, and so as a result, we get to dive into the supernatural with this new Dracula story.
Yeah, so I kind of like that, where Dracula is less of a villain and more of kind of an anti-hero.
It conflicted,
where
definitely.
He's making these decisions to protect those he loves and, you know, save his country and do stuff like that. But in the end, is it worth it?
And the fun thing with when you do the Dracula narrative in this way is in other films where it's just, you know, all the vampires are evil and you've got like these struggling humans, hopefully they'll just overcome them all.
Yeah.
This, you know, it's kind of fun because it's like, okay, how are they going to come down on the whole vampire thing at the end? Like, you know, was it necessary, or did he, you know, was it too corrupting? And it leaves more room for possibilities, and the action scenes just look really fun.
The action is very cool. The CG with all the bats, I really like that.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to get some enjoyment just out of those scenes. But I think what would really put this movie over the edge is after the credits, it shows Dracula in modern times. He's still roaming around, and he goes into his home at night, and he flips on a light or something, and there's Wesley Snipes. That would be movie of the year for me, I think. That would be incredible.
But I guess one closing comment for me is Luke Evans, the guy who's going to play Dracula, got his big break with the Hobbit films as Bard.
Yep.
And I'd consider this film a good test for if Luke Evans can be a moderate bankable star in his own right.
Some people are just purely supporting actors.
Right.
Jeremy Renner is the one that I think of. So yeah, this is definitely going to be the test for him.
Yeah.
If he can hold his own in Hollywood.
And I'm thinking he's going to benefit from the writing and the presentation, because I don't expect this movie to be a failure. I think it's going to do well.
All right. Well,
that's
we'll
my
see,
prediction.
You know.
Yep.
It's not traditional horror. You know, regular horror stuff tends to do okay on its own. This is definitely more big budget than regular horror is. Some people might be put off by the Dracula theme, which is not entirely played out, but vampires are here and there. But yeah, so we'll see how it does. We'll go see it at the very least.
Okay. I guess a few other bits of news we can cover for you.
Yep.
Netflix is developing their first film that is coming off the heels of having a number of successful Netflix exclusive series now.
Yep.
Apart from just acquiring the rights of some shows, they've actually developed some of their own. House of Cards is a good example. Yep. I think that's a decent show.
That's been doing well.
And what's this movie going to be about?
This is the sequel to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
All right, now if you just said like, "Hey, Netflix is making its own movie," and you asked me, "Hey, guess what's the movie gonna
That
be?"
would never be on my list.
Right.
Man. I don't know where that came from. I don't know who was sitting in on that board meeting, but that's what they decided on. Now, personally, I was not a huge fan of the original. I thought it...
And I felt the way it ended too was very final. That the whole cycle had been completed.
I don't
So
know. I love martial arts movies, but I like more that are grounded. This was the opposite of grounded.
oh yeah,
But the main point is that Netflix is now moving into making their own movies, which is a pretty big step. And they're starting with a sequel because they feel like probably that has some sort of recognition then.
yeah, maybe
That's
it's
not just, we're making some random throwaway thing. Like, here, you know about this. Let's see what we can do with a sequel.
Yeah, it's a half measure. We're making our own film. It's our own company, but it's a sequel to something that was well received.
So I haven't seen House of Cards. I hear that it's very good.
Yeah,
They did. I don't think they had any real input into the Arrested Development stuff. I think they just showed it. So
yeah,
they're still kind of fledgling as far as production goes, I think. But I probably won't watch it, to be perfectly honest. I didn't care for the original.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I'm going to see it either. It's worth mentioning because Netflix is kind of occupying
it's not
unique
part of
role.
Hollywood,
right?
Really. It's this own company that dragged itself up from its bootstraps with distribution, and now they're making their own stuff. It's like if Blockbuster made their own movies back in the day, or Hollywood Video.
Poor Blockbuster.
Yeah, so, I like the idea of other companies apart from the mega industry of Hollywood making their own stuff that's very, publicized. But if this is a big failure, then that's probably the end of that.
Yeah.
And the final piece of news is the Deadpool movie has been confirmed to be on the way in 2016, I believe. So that's the good news. The bad news is that they didn't confirm that Ryan Reynolds was involved.
And I get the feeling, if you don't come out and say Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool when you announce this movie and it's only 2 years away, he's not going to be Deadpool.
Yeah, well...
That's my gut instinct. I could be wrong, but...
I can't say that's my gut instinct because
No?
I would not want to live in the world where that's somebody's gut instinct.
Okay.
It's interesting that this comes right off the heels of the released footage that they put out for the Deadpool CG thing. You remember that? And I feel like they did that on purpose. They leaked it and then they put it out officially to kind of gauge interest. Like, what do people think about a Deadpool movie with Ryan Reynolds or something like that? And the reaction was very positive, even from people that were kind of naysayers.
Right.
And I thought it looked very good. I was hoping for the movie, and here it is.
Yeah, it's like when they did that Punisher short, The Dirty Laundry, and they didn't make a Punisher movie after that.
Yeah, I don't know how
painful.
official that one was, but...
It was amazing, though.
It was very good, yes. But yeah, so Deadpool
Yeah.
movie is coming. This is going to be an interesting thing because a lot of people see Marvel movies nowadays as very family-oriented. And Deadpool
For the most part,
is not that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a different step. They want to kind of broaden their markets a little bit, and Deadpool is perfect for that. But they need to get Ryan Reynolds. There's no alternative.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing. You have to.
Because the other...
Well, there's The Rock. I'd accept The Rock.
The other darker franchise, which I just mentioned, Punisher, didn't survive after Thomas Jane didn't come back for the second one. So it's a good example of the key guy, of course, being importance.
Well, there's also Blade.
Yeah. Blade's coming back, though.
Yeah,
Blade's coming
it
back.
is.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with the Deadpool movie. If Ryan Reynolds is confirmed, I'm sure we will talk about it with much glee. But if he's not confirmed, boycott forever. That's all I'll say.
All right. Thanks for joining us. This has been Admit 1, and we'll see you back next time for more movie discussion. And